YouTube, welcome to channel Anna Bella, and today I'm going to be discussing Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 6 The Iron Throne. This is my first reaction to the episode. In this review I will be doing a more detailed Game of Thrones review for the whole of the series from Season 1 to Season 8, but this is just my reaction to the ending of Season 8 Game of Thrones Episode 6 The Iron Throne. And also it's worth noting that the throne, being an Iron Throne, has become a weight upon Westeros and the surrounding world. So that's my tip. Hope you enjoy my reaction video. Bye/review. Bye. Enjoy the video. Hello YouTube, welcome to channel Anna Bella, and today I am reviewing Season 8 Game of Thrones, the last episode. And to be absolutely honest, it wasn't incredibly shocking, because I think we'd all seen the writing on the wall with this, with the whole Jon and Dany thing. And yes, the Brandon Stark being the king thing was a bit shocking, but not unexpected, because we'd already had that conversation earlier between Bran and Tyrion, why he wasn't going to be Lord of Winterfell, and Tyrion discovered that he didn't want it, which meant that Bran did want the throne or something else, but he didn't really want that either. So overall, do you think he's going to be a good king? Yes. Hopefully the brothels will get rebuilt and they'll have good sanitation in that horrible city. The docks need rebuilding. So overall, I think that Game of Thrones has lived up to its promise. It freed Jon Snow to be who he's going to be, because, I mean, why on earth do they need a Night's Watch? It's not like that we've got any ice zombies or Night Kings to defeat, so he's just free to hang out with the wildlings, which will mean that the North will become an incredibly powerful kingdom. It's basically hurrah for the Starks. We've got the Starks sailing off into new worlds with Arya. We've got Sansa holding the North and her bannerman together in Winterfell. We've got Jon Snow with the wildlings beyond the wall. Though having said that, the wall probably does need some rebuilding, but why bother? Because you've not exactly got a Night King problem, nor have you got an ice zombie problem anymore. It's just free for the wildlings to develop and grow, which could become a threat to the rest of the Six Kingdoms, but with Bran on the throne, I don't see that as a problem. It's going to be interesting to see how Castle Rock, which is the Lannister territory, is going to cope with Tyrion spending all of his time in King's Landing. Overall, it was really good. Bree of Tarth, she was awesome, writing up everything about Jaime Lannister, saying how he was a good knight. And did you notice that she was wearing his armour? And did you notice that Podrick is now Sir Podrick and is part of the King's Guard? It was some really good development. Sir Bronn of the Blackwater is now Master of the Coin and also in charge of food for the kingdom, or the Six Kingdoms. So I think it's going to go really, really well there. The Unsullied is sailing back to the island of Narth. I don't know what the Dothraki are doing. Perhaps some are staying, some are going. Overall, I would say that Game of Thrones was a really, really good story. I'd give it 9.5 for Season 1 to Season 8. It was good. Some people are upset that Jon Snow never became the main character and went out of his shell, but actually he has. He had a lot of power. It was really a story of Daenerys, Jon Snow and Tyrion and Sansa, to be absolutely, and obviously Arya and Bran. And it's an interesting story. It was a shame about the Rivers siblings though, and Hodor, and things like that. But in all honesty, it kind of did make sense, because why on earth, sometimes during the earlier seasons you felt, why are we following Bran? What on earth are we doing with these Rivers siblings? Why on earth are we following Hodor and everybody? It's not making any sense. That was anything that didn't really sort of add up. Everybody else's journey kind of did, because it was connected to being involved with the other houses, like the Tullys or the Lannisters or various things like that. Bran's story never really felt that it was taking place alongside the others. It felt that it was beyond the others, as if it was like the whole story, kind of a bit like Daenerys's, because she was out of destiny. But at least Bran's now looking for Drogo. So Khal Drogo, so the dragon, so hopefully we will be able to get him back, possibly. But I mean, he can wogue, so what's the point? He can just be the dragon in the sky. So you basically have an unbeatable king. And it was kind of sad what happened to the spider, to Viserys, but he did have a point where men do respond better to male leadership rather than female leadership, which is an interesting conundrum. The politics of gender, everyone, the politics of gender. So overall, I'd give it 9.5. Daenerys did have a good go, but she did have to go. If she'd have stopped when the bells had rung in King's Landing, she would be sitting on that Iron Throne. But I'm so glad that Khal Drogo the dragon burned the Iron Throne. Yes, I'm not going to give a spoiler warning. Come on now, people. We don't need it anymore. It's over, it's done, it was a good story. I like the fact that Tyrion gave the speech on it's the stories that have the biggest power. So the biggest stories that we've had so far, like Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, The Golden Compass, or if you want to be really correct, The Northern Lights or the Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Harry Potter, books 1 to 7, possibly The Cursed Child, possibly Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but that's got a question mark over it because I'm not quite sure we can validate that as a journey story at the moment. It kind of seems like a cheap way of, oh, I've got gaps in the Harry Potter canon, I'm going to fill it with that. But what on earth has this got to do with Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones has been a phenomenal story, absolutely phenomenal. Do you like the background? No, I kind of like the background too. Story. It's done some absolutely awesome and amazing things with where it's taken and the ideas that it's played with, like the face changes and all sorts of things, and it really has brought fantasy into the modern era and actually made it mainstreamable and watchable and highly popular, which is cool. What I do think is three things. One, I think they waited too long with season 7. They possibly could have done it, maybe we're in May, maybe they could have actually started it in April, I think, because a lot of people were really anticipating it, and I think they've been let down because they've waited too long, and now when they've seen it they've gone, oh, is that what I was waiting for? That's not very much. When actually when they step back and think about things and go, oh, that's why. Because we always knew that Jon Snow was never going to be, I'm going to be king type person, because that's not in his character, that's not how he was brought up. Remember, Ned Stark, deliberately, he had other children, and Jon Snow knew his place. In fact, Catelyn Stark, Ned Stark's wife, made sure that Jon Snow knew his place. Because she does that big speech about all these wars are because that she couldn't love Jon Snow, which is interesting in itself, I think. But I think it's interesting that he has gone back to the Northlings and hanging out there, and he will hold lands. He'll hold the whole of the Wildling, the land beyond the wall. He'll hold that, and he will have children. I can tell you that, and that's actually quite good. And when the Hand of the King, Tyrion, does go to Castle Black, he will find loads of wildlings there going, okay, this is interesting in itself. So they're going to have to think up the prison system in Westeros is going to have to change, because the Night's Watch may or may not be useful and possibly may interbreed with the wildlings, the way Jon Snow's going about stuff. So I think that's going to be interesting in itself. Overall, I did say 9.5 out of 10. It's been an awesome story with great characters, and it's been an inclusive story. We've had people with disabilities, we've had people with diseases, we've had people from different cultures, we've had different ethnic backgrounds mixing. It's been a really good story. It's been inclusive. It's allowed people that possibly haven't had a platform before to actually exist as characters. So people might think, oh, I can have an epileptic character in my medieval fantasy. It's not going to be a problem. It's actually going to enhance the story and make it richer and deeper and add meaning. I'm loving the fact that Sam is the Grand Maester. I just think that's so cool. Well, he's not the Grand Maester, but he's like the underling Grand Maester that's on the council for the king. So I think that's really cool. Love it. Yes, I once brought an ass and a pineapple into a brothel. Ah, the joys, the simple life. Overall, It was really, really good. It summed everything up, and it actually was a triumph for the Starks, because let's face it, the Starks, end of season 1 was not great for them. Their house was literally ripped to shreds, but we're so lucky that Ned had all those children to be able to put Westeros back together again. And unfortunately for Daenerys Targaryen, it didn't play out for her. She didn't learn her lesson. She was not merciful. And it was interesting that Jon Snow listened to Arya when Arya said, yeah, I can recognise the killer, she's not going to stop. So it's quite sad. We all hoped for the best for her, but it didn't work out. She muffed her cards, basically, unfortunately, and she didn't listen. She didn't listen to Mormont. If she'd have listened to him and forgave Tyrion, then perhaps she would have lasted longer, but she didn't. But you all knew that the writing was on the cards at the end of the Battle of the Living, Battle of the Dead. You could see, because she didn't have a connection to any of the other characters there. She was set apart, and she couldn't join in. She didn't know anybody. She didn't have history with them. She had no common bond. I mean, yes, the Three-Eyed Raven doesn't have a common bond, but he's inhabiting the body of Brandon Stark, who's got sisters. And through that, the Three-Eyed Raven understands the bond. Daenerys doesn't have that at all. All she has is a bond with the dragons and Jon Snow, who, unfortunately, even though she was his aunt, he could see that this was the right thing to do. So, overall, 9.5 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed my /review/recap. I will say this, the use of CGI has improved throughout, and the use of women, actually, the writing for women has got stronger. And by the use of women, I would like to clarify that I don't mean how women are used on screen. I meant how they're represented, like with more clothes and with more modesty. But that's mainly because the actresses kicked up a fuss, which was brilliant, actually, because it improved the show, created richer characters, and enabled women, the female characters on the show and the women characters on the show, to actually have a space for themselves. But I think it's very interesting that a eunuch, a man without a penis and testicles, can make the decision that a king is always better than a queen. That is hugely interesting and speaks a lot about men in general. Yeah, so gender politics, people. If anything has like disturbed you, well, it's Game of Thrones. There was bound to be something that disturbed you. I mean, wasn't there that point where we were in that prison and there was these guards and they had that brown bucket with rats in, and they were putting them on stomachs and then lighting the bottom of the rat, the bottom of the bucket, and then the rat would gnaw through the person? I vividly remember that. Yeah, Game of Thrones, not a child-friendly show. Hence the 18 certificate. So I hope you enjoyed my commentary on the last season of it. I've kind of enjoyed doing it. I'm quite glad that I actually waited until the last season to do this commentary, because it's nice to just sum it all up and tie it up in a ribbon and put it in a box. So yeah, Game of Thrones, awesome, absolutely awesome series, really well done story, rich characters, good depth, and good inclusive characters, actually, for a show that's supposed to be about the medieval world. And I love the fact that Sam pointed out we could actually get everybody to vote. He's like, yes, I could give my dog or my horse a vote, but that's not going to work. We're going to get the lords and ladies to vote to choose a king. They will no longer be born, they will be chosen by the nobility, which is a great compromise, I think. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, comment and subscribe, and that's basically it. Enjoy Game of Thrones or not. Bye. And yeah, I basically think that they waited too long to show it, and people's expectations got too high. But that's the problem. Event TV is new. Tell that to Endgame, which deservedly so is good. So we've got Event Cinema now and Event TV. I'm not quite sure where this is going to go in the future, but I'm kind of pleased it's here. It kind of adds an extra element to our lives, makes them less dull, I guess. But did we ever need it? If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. I've said that like 5 times now. So this is the end of the video. Bye everyone. My final point on Game of Thrones is actually a lot of the female characters would be pregnant. Brienne of Tarth would be pregnant. Arya would be pregnant. There'd be no way that she'd be going on a sea voyage. Sansa probably miscarriage due to the violence, but there'd be no way that Arya Stark would be going on a sea voyage. Not after that. She definitely would be pregnant. It just shows that this was written by a bloke. Sansa probably miscarried. Arya would be pregnant with the next Lord of Storm's End. And it is very, very likely that Brienne of Tarth would also be pregnant as well. So I'm just throwing my 5 pennies worth in there. Dany probably was as well, though she got stabbed by her lover. So I think, see, this is where it falls down. The storytelling is you have all these things, but yet the only person that seems to get pregnant is Cersei. So yes, I definitely think that this just shows it was written by a bloke. But that's my final point, is actually a lot of the female characters would be pregnant, and the ending did not reflect that at all. But then again, it shows you that this was written by a man. So there you have it. So that's my final thought. Bye!